Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel a good few times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last couple of years, quite a few different styles in fact, but it has been a while since I've reviewed anything from these guys, maybe about 6 months or so. But this beer is a style I know they can do very well. It's one of my favourite styles and I have to say I'm very much looking forward to it. So I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head up towards the Stockholm area once again and we're going to return to Fjäderholmarnas Bryggeri. And this must be the 9th or 10th review that I've done from these guys by this point. But this particular beer is called the Sunny Susan. It comes in at 6.5% ABV and this one is a West Coast IPA. So yeah, as I say, this is a brewery who I know pretty well actually. I've enjoyed the beers that I've had from them before. I've had some really nice West Coast IPAs from them. I think the last IPA I had was actually in New England. I've tried their Imperial Stout, their barley wine, and probably my favourite beer from this brewery actually would be the Vienna Lager. I really enjoyed that one. So hopefully now that they're doing beers in cans, they bring that one back. I think that could be a really interesting beer to do like a collaboration review on or something like that. But yeah, I think this one should be really interesting. So fingers crossed it's another good beer, and as I said earlier, I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one. Definitely nice to return to Fjäderholmarnas Bryggeri after about 6 months or so. So yeah, let's crack on with this one then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Fjäderholmarnas Bryggeri before, and we will no doubt add more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then. So Fjäderholmarnas Bryggeri, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in the Stockholm area, and the brewery was originally based for the main part on the small set of islands of the same name out to the east of central Stockholm. But the company was founded back in 2013 by Pelle Ågren and Andreas Wellman, who both previously worked for Mackmyra, the Swedish whiskey distiller. But they'd often talked about brewing beer together, and then they started to home brew and they just really enjoyed it. But eventually they managed to sort out a premises for their brewery in late 2013 and they were ready to open by April of 2014. So Tobias Forsberg was the brewer until summer of 2019, and then he was replaced by Per Salkvist, who used to work for Nordic Kiwi Brewers, now of course Northern Exposure Brewing Company. Do make sure you check them out as well. They've got some really nice beers. But these guys have their own restaurant and bar, but this stops trading over the winter months and it runs from spring to autumn. But the brewery is run as a year-round business. But the brewery is located right next to the water, and apparently most of the customer base in this original brew pub that they have is tourists. So it's somewhere that I do want to go and have a little look at. If you look at the pictures of this place, it's one of these kind of classic Scandinavian wooden sort of buildings, the red ones. So yeah, I really hope that I can get out to Fjäderholmarnas at some point and have a little look at this. I probably would have gone out there already if it wasn't for the whole COVID-19 thing, but we'll see about getting this done at some point in the near future. But yeah, this brewery had some really interesting things going on when you consider the logistics of what they had to do. They had their own boat, but they said that this didn't solve all the issues they encountered with transport and things like that. But the brewery was operating a 500-litre brew kit, and in 2018 they produced around 70,000 litres of beer for that year. But around 1/3 of this was sold on the island, 1/3 of it goes to the rest of Stockholm, and 1/3 of it was going to Systembolaget as well. But things changed a little bit more recently, should we say. But in late 2020 it was announced that Pelle and Andreas had invested to take over the brewery run by Frequency Beer Works and Säbyholms Bryggeri, which is in Bro to the northwest of Stockholm. But this brewery is equipped with a 4,000 litre brew kit, and this means that they're able to increase their capacity quite dramatically, in fact. And from what I understand, Pele and Andreas are kind of running, they're sort of managing this facility, if you like, but the Frequency and Säbyholms beers continue to be produced there, and Fjäderholmarnas are also continuing to run their brew pub on the islands as well, so I can still go and visit it, which I'm very happy about. But yeah, that's the reason why you've got these beers in the cans now, and I do need to try some from Frequency Beer Works and Säbyholms. I've heard of Säbyholms before, but I hadn't heard of Frequency Beer Works, but those guys are apparently owned by some of the In Flames. The dudes in the In Flames band, so we need to check that out. Actually, not the same ones that are doing Odd Island, of course, but yeah, as of April 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 70 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and like I said to you earlier, they do a variety of different styles, quite a few IPAs. As I said, the Cutyard, if I'm remembering the name of it right, the Cutyard Vienna Lager is potentially my favourite beer that I've had from these guys, but their winter beers are very nice as well. There's Mr. Cocoa, and I forget what the barley wine is called, but yeah, if you get the chance to try some of their beers, I would recommend you do the winter ones. But yeah, as I say, if you're getting if they do those in the cans as well, just make sure you share those, because those two beers, the stout and the barley wine that they release in winter time, they are absolute beasts. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Fjäderholmarnas Bryggeri for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, one of the other things that I do hope to do with this brewery at some stage is a kind of meet the brewery segment. Of course, these have been put on hold because of the whole COVID-19 pandemic, but I can't remember if it was Pele or Andreas that I'd spoken to from this brewery, but whoever it was that communicated with me from the brewery were quite keen to do a meet the brewery segment on the Fjäderholmarnas, so we'll see about getting that done at some stage, hopefully later this year or something. But yeah, as I say, that's all I've got for you, so let's crack on and have a little look at this beer then. So as you can see, the artwork on this one has changed a little bit from what they had on the bottles, although the kind of style of the drawings has kind of stayed the same. Here you can see on the back there is the Fjäderholmarnas Bryggeri symbol, but yeah, they're still sticking to that maritime theme, obviously, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I do have to say I like the new cans. Artwork, as I say, it's still got a similar style, but it's changed obviously to be a more kind of minimalist sort of thing, as you would expect with these cans. It's kind of the trend these days to have a sort of minimalist can. But yeah, I think I paid about 45 Swedish kronor for this beer, so that is €4.50, about £4 sterling, and maybe in the region of $5.25, $5.50 American. I'm not sure exactly what the exchange rate is just now. But yeah, 6.5% West Coast IPA, this one, the Sunny Susan. Let's get it out and get on with the tasting then. Definitely nice to return to this brewery after what feels like quite a long time. And there's a New England IPA coming out from these guys next month, which I am going to get and review for you on the channel. But yeah, here we go. See how we get on with this one then. So I think that'll do for the moment, just to take a look at the appearance of the beer and stuff like this. So yeah, checking that it lines up for my OCD, and there we go. So as you can see, and as you would expect, this beer certainly looks the part of a West Coast IPA. So you can see it's poured with about a 2/3 finger, pardon me, of a frothy kind of cream coloured head there. Definitely not a perfect white head, it is more of a kind of cream colour that you get out of this one, but you can see this beer's got a lovely kind of rich amber hue to it. So you can see it's got a little bit more of that kind of natural haze thing to it, as you would expect from a West Coast IPA, not the kind of big soupy gloopy sort of thing you'd get from a New England. There's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head, but the carbonation doesn't look madly active in this one. But yeah, lovely rich amber colour. Remember, the colour of these beers depend on 1, the type of malts that you use, and 2, the length of your wort boil. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar's caramelised, thus you get a darker colour of beer. But it does depend in the first instance on what malts you're using. A West Coast IPA like this is going to undergo a boil of like 70 to 90 minutes, something like that. But yeah, it certainly looks the part of a West Coast IPA. Nothing out of the ordinary with how this beer looks. So I guess we can take a look at the aroma then. And I will say, just the little whiff of it that I got when I was opening up the can, it is pretty damn nice actually. So yeah, let's go for it. Ooh, this smells very nice. This does smell good. And you can sort of smell, there's something about the IPAs that I've had from Fjäderholmarnas before. They've just got this kind of bready thing to them in the base. And I like it when you notice little signatures like this when it comes to breweries, you know, with like Stockholm Brewing Company, of course, as I've mentioned in recent reviews. They've got that sort of slightly farmhousey kind of vibe to them, which is very nice. That's their kind of signature. Whereas Fjäderholmarnas, these guys have got this kind of, from what I remember, it's a kind of bready and biscuity thing that these guys like to go for. So it's you can definitely pick that up in this beer, and it's a little bit nostalgic because it's been, you know, 6 months since I reviewed a beer from these guys. But yeah, the aroma of this one is very, very nice. It gives you kind of everything you'd expect from a West Coast IPA. So yeah, let's try and break that down for you. So straight away with this beer, you can smell that nice kind of soft bready base in there. It's like, it has got a bit of a white bready character to it, but at the same time you get a few kind of bread crusty notes and a little bit of a kind of wholemeal character, if that makes sense. There is a little bit of that in this one. There's a good wee bit of kind of sweet caramel in this beer for sure. So a sweet straight up caramel in the middle of the nose with this one. I do get a little bit of a kind of Werther's Original sort of butter candy type thing out of this one too, but there is also some very nice kind of McVitie's digestive biscuit sort of thing, or cookies. So yeah, you've got a typical sort of West Coast malt base with this beer, which I think personally works very, very well. I think this beer, if I remember right, this one did have wheat malt in it. No, it's not. It says it's an all barley malt thing. I had thought it. I thought when I checked it earlier, it had a little bit of wheat malt in it. So I was going to say that makes sense if it's a little bit bready, but apparently not. But yeah, it does have a lovely kind of breadiness to it and things like that. Got a feeling there might be a little bit of Maris Otter or maybe like a little touch of Vienna malt or something like that in this one. It does have a wee bit of that sort of German bready kind of thing too, and you know, it wouldn't surprise me if they're using some German malts in here. But yeah, the malty backbone of this one is very nice. Like I say, lovely bready element, a bit of white bread, a bit of wholemeal, a bit of bread crust, some sweet caramel, a little bit of a kind of Werther's Original sort of butter candy type thing, and then a little bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity element to it. So everything you would want from a West Coast IPA. It smells quite old school, this one actually. So yeah, I'm curious to see how bitter this one is going to be actually. I do like a bit of bitterness in my West Coasters. And remember, this is one thing I've said in reviews before, the West Coast IPAs these days have evolved a little bit because people are used to low bitterness from the New England ones. So yeah, that's something you have to bear in mind when you're reviewing these styles of beers these days. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, there's something familiar about this beer as well in terms of the hoppy side of things. On the hoppy side of the beer, you get a little touch of earthiness out of this one, but not a lot. The green component for me is lovely and bright and floral in a sense. I wouldn't describe it as being kind of spicy, to be honest with you. I wouldn't describe this beer as being overly spicy, but you do get a nice little bit of a floral aromatic note out of this one, and it's got a good bit of depth to it in that sense as well. The grassy side of things is a little bit zesty as well, so at the front of the nose you're getting that nice kind of grassiness, and the fruity side of this beer, again, it's quite familiar. This, I think I've probably had a beer that's had this combination of hops in it before, but it has got a wee bit of a citrusy leaning to it. There's something in my head wants me to say that there's a bit of equinaut in here. The other alternative to that could be Motueka from New Zealand. There's definitely a little bit of a kind of limey character to this one, which is quite interesting. But behind that, it's got a good little bit of a kind of typical tropical character actually. So there's a good bit of a there's a slightly passion fruity note in this one. You know, there's a bit of a, for me it's a good little bit of oily passion fruit that you get out of this one. There is a bit of mango in there, of course, as well. It could be Citra, right enough. It could be a good little bit of Citra in this one, because Citra can give you those kind of brighter citrusy notes, but at the same time giving you the more oily and pungent tropical fruits. So yeah, I get a good little bit of passion fruit out of this one. There is a bit of an oily mango in there as well. You know, you can pick up these little undertones of like, you know, the sort of more apricot flavours and stuff like that. But for me, this one's quite an oily mango, quite a bit of passion fruit. I've got a feeling there is a bit of a limey element to this one as well, as I say. So could it be a little bit of like Citron Motueka or something like that that's in this one, or Citron Equinox? Could be. There is something quite familiar about this beer. As I say, I'm trying to figure out if there's a wee orangey component. There's part of me wants to say there is a wee bit of a kind of tangerine orangey thing, but there's part of me that says that there's not, and I'm leaning towards saying there's not. So for me, this beer, as I say, it's got a nice little bit of a limey character to it, a bit of mango for me, and a bit of a more pungent passion fruit. So yeah, I'd be curious to know what hops are in this one, in fact, because there is something just oddly familiar about these beers. As I've always told you, I like playing guess the hops, but these days it's very hard because, you know, you've got all of these new hops coming out and things like you've got Talus and Sabro, and you've got all the New Zealand ones, Styrian Wolf and, you know, Hallertau Blanc and all of these kind of things. There's so many hops these days, it really is difficult to play guess the hops in the same way that we could, you know, maybe 2 or 3 years ago on the channel. But yeah, it's still interesting to think about it a little bit. But yeah, as I always say, take a bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But we're going to have a taste of this one now and see how we go. Let's just get the last of it into the glass. That's a nice pour. Line the can up again so that my OCD is happy. And there we go. So yeah, this one is the Sunny Susan 6.5% West Coast IPA from Fjäderholmarnas Bryggeri in Fjäderholmarnas Islands, and also brew to the northwest of Stockholm. Let's get stuck into this one. Slange, skål, cheers. Yeah, that's pretty solid, definitely. And it's quite reminiscent of the beers that we've had from this brewery before. I think I've said it in other reviews that the beers you get from Fjäderholmarnas, they really remind me a little bit of the kind of ones that you drink from Malmö Brewing Company down here in Skåne. They've still got, they just have this little bit of a kind of brew pub, you know, brauhaus kind of feel to them. And that's one of the reasons I think I really like this brewery, is because, yeah, Malmö Brewing Company, they don't can their stuff, which is annoying. I wish they would. But yeah, this is a lovely, lovely beer. So thumbs up to Fjäderholmarnas once again. So yeah, I like this one for sure. If you've had IPAs and you've had West Coast IPAs from this brewery before, this one isn't too different from those, if you like. It's still, but it's a solidly done beer in my opinion. So definitely have a go at it and see what you think. But yeah, let's try and break down the flavour of this one then and see how we go. So yeah, this one, straight away with this beer, it's kind of, to be honest, this beer does, from what you get from the aroma, this one really does translate into the flavour quite well in my opinion. So straight away with this beer, you can feel that nice kind of bready backbone to it. That goes right across the middle of your tongue, and again it's a sort of balance between a sort of white bready note in there. There's a little bit of a kind of wholemealy thing, and also some nice bread crusty qualities. So yeah, I can definitely appreciate how this one goes about its business in that sense. So the bready backbone of this beer is the kind of signature thing, I think, from Fjäderholmarnas, and they and it shows really nicely in this beer too. As I say, I think a bit of German malt was used for the backbone of this beer. So on top of that, of course, you get a little, in the middle of your palate, you can get that typical sort of slightly boozy brown sugary note, which you're always going to get from a West Coast IPA. So that sits in the very middle of your palate. You can feel that right away. Underneath that though, you can feel that I'm not getting so much of the kind of Werther's Original butter candy sort of thing that was picking up in the aroma, in fact, but around that kind of more concentrated caramelly brown sugar, as you move kind of further away from that, you do get a little bit more of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing out of it. So I can really appreciate how that goes together. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I think other than that, that kind of covers the malt base, to be honest. You do get one or two little woody undertones out of it, but yeah, it's quite a straight shooting beer, this one, in terms of how it goes. You do get a little touch of graininess out of it before you go into the aftertaste. But yeah, that's the middle third of your palate covered pretty well, I think. White bready, wholemeal bready kind of backbone, some nice kind of bread crusty elements to it, bit of kind of sweet concentrated caramel in the very middle of the tongue, a wee bit of a kind of biscuity sort of element to it, and you've also got a little bit of a kind of you've also got a little bit of, you know, just kind of more graininess comes out of the beer later on. But yeah, on that border region between middle third and back third of your palate, you can feel there is a little bit of a sort of kind of doughiness that builds up and a wee bit of a graininess in there as well. But then the back third of your palate, you can feel this is slightly more grainy. It kind of leans a little bit more towards that grainy, wholemealy sort of bread on the back third of your palate. But yeah, on top of that back third of your tongue, you can feel the flavour is just a little bit taller. You get those more kind of airy, yeasty type flavours in this one, and again, as you usually get, the flavour feels quite tall on the back third of your palate, and it just condenses down as you go further forward, and then as you move into the middle third of your palate, it's got a really nice dense. It has a very nice sort of dense kind of maltiness to it there. So yeah, interesting how the malt base goes together in this one. But like I say, the malt base for me is quite typical of the other beers that we've had from Fjäderholmarnas Brewery before. But yeah, onto the hoppy side of things then. Back corners of the palate, there's definitely a wee bit of earthiness in this one. The more that I drink of this beer, I wonder, is there a little bit of Columbus in here as a bittering hop? Because as you move further forward from that back of your tongue, as you come further forward along the sides of the palate here, it does just have a little bit of kind of spiciness to it, and there's just something about it that the slight earthiness and the spiciness that you get out of this beer does make me wonder, is this a little bit of Columbus being used as the bittering hop? Remember, one of the other main differences between a West Coast IPA and a New England IPA is that West Coast IPAs, with the higher bitterness, they rely more on, you know, early addition hops. If you add the hops early on in the wort boil, that's when you get most bitterness out of them, and you've got a progressive trade-off over the course of the wort boil whereby bitterness drops and flavour and aroma becomes favoured. So yeah, New England IPAs tend to rely more on their later addition hops, whereas the West Coast IPAs do have a bit more of a reliance on that early addition. But yeah, there are a lot of late additions to the West Coasters as well. But yeah, there is just a wee bit of a kind of floral spiciness to this one that makes me think Columbus. Yeah. But round the front curve of the palate as well, you do have a nice little bit of grassiness there. And yeah, I like how that goes together as well. So the green component in this beer is quite nice. But yeah, the grassy and floral side of this beer, I think, is really very, very nicely done in this one. So yeah, it gives you that typical big green component that you need from a West Coast IPA, and you do get a wee bit of zestiness on the front curve of the palate as well, in fairness. But yeah, front third of the tongue then, let's focus on that. So border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again you get a little bit of a kind of doughy, bready build up there. There's a bit of a kind of graininess too, but then underneath that you do get a little bit of a how would you say, underneath that you do get a little bit of a kind of grainy, bready sort of thing again, and on top of that, as I always say, you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So let's focus on those fruity esters now then. There's something that's telling me now that I might have been wrong about the Citra in this beer right enough, but yeah, as you go towards the back of that front third of your palate, at the very back of it, you do get a little bit of a pungent passion fruit. As you move further forward from that, you get a bit of a more oily and juicy mango, and then as you move on to the kind of the front half of that front third of your tongue, It does have a wee bit of an orange, you know. I'm still not sure about this. Now I'm wondering if there's a bit of mosaic in this beer because of the earthiness, and it does have a wee bit of a kind of orangey note on the front of the palate as well. So yeah, you do, as I say, back at that front third of the palate, a little bit of a mosaic-y sort of thing, a wee bit of a, sorry, not a mosaic-y sort of thing, a wee bit of a passion fruity sort of thing, a bit of a mango as you move further forward, and then you get a little bit more of it. You get one or two little apricot-y notes out of this one. And you get some nice kind of limey. You do get a little bit of that sort of limey, orangey kind of character. As I say, it's on the front half of that front third of your tongue. For me, there's a bit of a lighter tangerine-y, mosaic-y type note out of this one, and then you do just get a little bit of lime behind the front, the very front tip of your tongue where you've got the grassy notes coming out. Could it be like a mosaic, motueka, and maybe a little bit of, I don't know, like Victoria's Secret or citrus? There's definitely a more kind of tropical leaning hop in this one as well, but I wouldn't be surprised if this one has something like motueka or and a bit of mosaic in it. I think the earthiness would tell me there's a bit of mosaic in here. But whatever it is, as I say, it's very difficult to really guess the hops these days. But yeah, passion fruit, a little bit of an oily mango, tangerines and a wee bit of lime for me. That's what I kind of get out of this one. You will get a few like apricot notes and things like that the further you go into the aftertaste. It does develop a wee bit of a kind of dried fruity sort of thing, but yeah, I like how that how all of that pieces together in this beer. So yeah, it works. It works very nicely. So thumbs up to Fjäderholmarnas Bryggeri on this one. Certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink this again. But yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel then, what can we say about this one? So, nice little bit of oiliness, as I said. I would describe this beer as being kind of straight in the middle. It's mid-bodied. Carbonation is very smooth. It has a little bit of that oily slickness that you want from a West Coast IPA. In terms of bitterness, it's not going to blow the head off you, but I would think this one is maybe about 60 IBUs. Yeah, 50 or 60 IBUs this one. I'm leaning towards saying it's 60. Not this. I mean, remember this is my weakest point of beer reviewing as well. But yeah, the West Coast IPA, the West Coast IPAs you're getting these days are lower in bitterness than they used to be, just as I say, because of the prominence in New England IPAs. But yeah, it does give you a little bit of that green component that you expect from this style. Malty base, as I say, is a nice kind of smooth, bready sort of thing, which I really like. You do get a bit of that boozy kind of brown sugary note out of it as well, and you've got a lovely oily fruity character to this one. So this beer gives you everything you'd want from a West Coast IPA, and it kind of shows off the sort of signature kind of bready element that I know to expect from Fjäderholmarnas Bryggeri. So yeah, nice to return to these guys once again. I enjoy reviewing their beers, and I'm curious to see what the New England has in store for us next month. But yeah, I think we can round off this review there then. So this one was the Sunny Susan, a 6.5% West Coast IPA from Fjäderholmarnas Bryggeri, and I would recommend you have a go at this one. I think this is pretty solid actually. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Fjäderholmarnas Bryggeri. I do recommend that you try their winter beers, and if you can get the Cut Yard Vienna Lager, that's a beautiful beer. Their IPAs are pretty solid, but yeah, for me, I think the Cut Yard Lager is probably my favourite one I've had from them so far, along with those winter beers, of course, the Mr. Cocoa and the barley wine. I forget the barley wine's name, but yeah, nice little brewery this one, and definitely worth checking out if you get the chance. Thanks again for watching. Check out my social media, check out Fjäderholmarnas Bryggeri, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. The Sunny Susan, 6.5% West Coast IPA. Slange, skull, and cheers.